Good evening and welcome to Straight Talk Liberia. Tonight, we sit down with the man who says confidently that he has what it takes to put Liberia on par with the rest of Africa's rising nation. A man with privilege, access, and pedigree. His father once served as vice president of the Republic of Liberia. He lived inside the system. He understands the corridors of power. He is a professor and also he has a doctorate degree in rhetoric. He's also an athlete who played professional football. This man says he has exactly what it takes, what Liberia needs to move forward. But here's the catch. Why the education system of Liberia is breaking, why it's crumbling, why buildings are crumbling down because of poor management, why classrooms are overcrowded, and students are looking for answers and eager to learn new skills, new ideas, new building new capacities. This man is not teaching in Liberia. He is a professor at a university in Rwanda, Kigali. He's there impacting and empowering Rwandans or Liberians, his own people could benefit from this service. But he's telling you that he knows what it takes. He ran to be president in 2023 as one of the youngest presidents to run in recent time. He sits with me tonight to discuss his ideas, his views, his strategy, or some of his strategies at least, as to what Liberia needs and what it would take for Liberia to be on par with the rest of Africa's nation. My name is Abraham Toure, and welcome to Straight of Liberia. Today, we sit with Dr. Clarence Moniba, the political leader of the political party, Lino. All right, well, Dr. Moniba, thanks, and welcome to the program.
No, thank you so much for having me on, Abraham. It's always good to have conversations about Liberia and how we can all work together to build our country. So I really appreciate the platform and I appreciate the opportunity, to have a frank discussion with you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I saw on Facebook. You you're doing great things, man. I saw you proposing all that.
Right.
How was it like?
No, I've been laughing the last few days because that post on Facebook got over 9,000 likes. And so it shows you, sometimes the interest of the Liberian people.
True.
When we start talking about policies and everything, it will get 1,000 likes, 2,000 likes. But but I was very happy because a lot of people were so happy to see me take this next step in my life journey. And,
Okay.
I've been blessed with a smart, beautiful, supportive partner. And so I'm very happy about the situation and I'm very happy about the future.
The people said you were when you were running. They said the man I'm married, a single married
Mhm.
person. Now you about to get married. Now what's going to be the excuse in that context?
And that's the thing that always used to confuse me because during the elections, everybody were crying about George Weah. Oh, we're suffering, we're suffering. But I used to say, if marriage is so important, the man married, so why are you crying? Right? So the idea is that we cannot allow marriage to be the most important determining factor on how somebody and if somebody can lead. And so that's why I always continue to plead with the people of Liberia. Let's truly look at the issues. Let's not look at personalities. The challenge we have been having in Liberia is simply because it's personalities that we look at. When we
Mm,
want leadership, we say, who do we like? If not,
true.
who is competent? Who has good character? Right? So we have to start to look at people's background and their character. Is this person corrupt? Do they have any charges on them? Do they have any speculation on them? These are things we have to be able to look. And then we have to start to also look at what does the person want to do for our country? Let's start talking about the issues, which I hope we'll be able to talk about today, right? How are we going to fix the agriculture sector in Liberia? How are we going to fix the education sector in Liberia? How are we going to fix the healthcare system in Liberia? Those should be the first questions we ask, as opposed to the man married, the man got money. And these are the reasons why we continue to struggle as a nation to find the leadership that we need in this country because we are asking the wrong questions.
Talking about the elections, that pretty much that's a great segue. What was your experience like being a young person? I mean, in recent time, I don't know who younger than you ever ran for the presidency, but being a young person in recent time who saw, say, you know what, we can't continue to do things business as usual, and it's a time that we too go into lead. What was your experience like from just the fact that just from thinking about it, to actually registering then the campaign? What was the
Going through the
experience for
process.
you? Yeah.
Honestly, it was this gray hair that you're seeing right now. It all happened within a eight 8 month period of time. Um, but I would say this, right? Our generation, and I think you believe this, and in fact, I know you believe this. Our generation will be the one responsible to develop and transform Liberia. I
100%.
truly believe that our generation, not the elder generation, and it cannot, and we cannot allowed the next generation to do it. That means we ourselves, our generation, did not do our job. So I always used to talk to the young people, and I always remember this story, and I don't think I'll ever forget it. Days that we didn't have a lot of resources, I would literally go door to door campaigning in communities and different villages and everything else. So this time I wasn't too far. I was around Marshall, going door to door, knocking on people, knocking on people's door, talking to people. And this young guy came up to me. He was so excited. He said, "Oh, Dr. Moniba, I've been listening to you on the radio. Oh, you good for this country. Thank God." He was so excited to take a picture of me. He tried to take his selfie, and his hands were shaking. Right, he was that excited. So I said, "Oh, but then thank God, at least I got your vote." He said, "No, I'm voting. I'm voting for you in 2029. I'm not voting for you now." And so this lets you know that us as young people, we have to believe in ourselves. And that's why it's so important for people like me, not just me, but people like me to take this step, to be able to say, listen, we are the future of this country, and we are going to change the narrative of this country. Right now, when you think about politicians in Liberia, you think about negative. You think about
Sure.
corruption. You think about, every negative connotation that you can think about is what people pretty much think about it, right? And you cannot blame them, because when you look at our country is not where it should be. I always say, and I will continue to say, Liberia is not good enough for Liberians, and it's not. I don't
Let me
care
ask.
how you want to twist this. Yes, go ahead,
So let
Abraham.
me ask you this.
Hmm.
I want you to name priority in whatever, not in no specific order, which of course I
Hmm.
will appreciate specific orders, but
Hmm.
I want you to name it. In the perfect case scenario, you were given the presidency today to be the
Right.
president of Liberia.
Hmm.
What are your priorities and how are you going to start with them?
And that's an excellent question. And so I will try to answer it by just looking at the different sectors. Because you're
Okay.
right, there are so many priorities that you start to struggle when you say, okay, everything is priority. But let me give a priority in every single sector, right?
Hmm.
Let's start with healthcare.
Hmm.
Right now, the best advice that a doctor in Liberia can give you is to buy a plane ticket to go to Ghana or India. That is the best advice that a Liberian doctor can give you. So then the next question is, how many Liberian people can afford a plane ticket to go to Ghana or to go to India, let alone the treatment that they will have to take in those countries?
Why
So
why
from
do
the
they give why do they give that advice though? Why do you think they give that advice?
simply because we don't have the facilities, we don't have the human capital, we don't have the training in this country. So when we
Okay.
start talking about what we have to do, right, as president, we have to be able to do a couple of things. But the first thing, we have to take JFK back to the level it should have been. In 2017, it was estimated that JFK needed $55 million to transform to become a regional hospital, a hospital where people from Guinea, where people from Ghana, where people from Cote d'Ivoire would come to Liberia for treatment. 55 million. But that was almost 8 to 9 years ago. Right now, we're talking about we need and we have to be able to find 75 plus million dollars to infuse into JFK. We have to have a hospital that any type of treatment, any type of surgery can be done, because the Liberian people need that. What if you're in, you're in Banga, you in Senegal or somewhere else? Are you really thinking about going to India? You can't. So we have to be able to give people the facilities. So when you start talking about what we have to do in the healthcare sector, we have JFK and then we have Tapeta Hospital. Those two hospitals, we need a direct and immediate infusion of $150 million to both of them to be able to transform our healthcare system. And then the next step will be to make sure all 73 districts in this country have a hospital or clinic that the people of that district can go to. Because
So
JFK and Tapida Hospital, they're not meant for when you have malaria, you go there. Those should
so
be referral hospitals. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to hold your thought on that a little bit.
Hmm.
I strongly believe money has not been our problem in Liberia when it comes to how we're
Exactly.
supposed to transform the country. Now, if you have the 150 million or $300 million that you have to infuse in this area, what is the strategic way of making sure that money is used? What is the infusion going to affect? What is it going to be for? Is it bringing new doctors? Is it sending doctors overseas to to come and learn and go back, or bringing resident doctors in Liberia? How is that money going to be disbursed?
It has to be all of the above. In my opinion, is that we need an estimated $75 million per. I know for JFK we would need that, right? But it has to be all of the above. A, we need to ensure that JFK right now has the proper facilities and equipment, right?
Mm,
Everything
mm,
from electricity to the proper doctors to the proper equipment to be able to do
mm,
any type of surgery that we can have on the face of this earth. Simply because, and then when people thought the issue is the standards that we have at JFK. Let me please
mm,
tell you a story. I had an intern that used to work for me, and she was living in the US. She moved to Liberia and she was interning for me when I worked at the Ministry of State. She she fainted. We rushed her to the hospital. She refused in her state. She refused to lay down on the the mattress that was given to her because it was stained. It was stained. I don't know what exactly, but it was brown, it was red, it was just all kind of different things. She refused as we were holding her. She refused to
mm,
lay down on the bed. So what I'm trying
mm.
to say is that when you take this money, A, we have to be able to train Liberian doctors. Right. So
Okay.
yes, you're going to bring some international doctors into the country. Absolutely, you need that. You need to be able to put in the facilities. But again, JFK was meant to be a referral and training hospital. We have completely gone away from that, completely gone away from that. So we have to turn it into that again. If we remember
Education.
Abraham,
Education.
okay, but let me. If you remember, JFK was one of the best hospitals in West Africa. That has to be
Okay.
our intention. That has to be our aim. When you look at education, the foundation of Liberia, right? The most important period of any child's life is from the first grade to the sixth grade, early childhood education. Look at the schools. I was blessed to have gone to 263 towns and villages. And when you enter some of those towns and villages and you enter the schools, you will understand that our children are not being educated. How can you learn as a child, as a 5 year old, 6 year old, 7 year old child? You don't even have food to eat. So there's no school feeding program in this country. Absolutely none. And we have to understand one of the most important things for young children to educate is to have food in the system. We don't have that in this country. A lot of our children go to school, they only got kala in their pocket to eat. How can you learn? You're sitting on the dirt floor, there's no blackboard, there's no electricity. And then, even when you talk about the quality of education our children are getting, honestly, look at the typical Liberian child who's 7, 8, 9, 10 years old and ask them if they've even seen a computer. Absolutely not, let alone turn the computer on. So how are we saying that we are educating the Liberian children when we can't even compete with our neighbors in Ghana? We can't compete with our neighbors in Ivory Coast. So we have to raise the standards of education in this country. But the thing is, we also have to be able to look at everybody in Liberia want open school. What is the quality? What is the quality that we are
So what
allowing people to
what
open schools? So
what what
these
is
are the
your
challenges.
what is your standard structure a blueprint? I always ask this question. I was speaking to one of the I was speaking to Honorable Musa Berti, the CMC CCC MCC, whatever his name is, CMC, I
CMC.
think it is. CMC is a political leader, and I was asking. I usually say blueprint. What is your blueprint for, say, if you were president today? How do you intend to actually transform education in Liberia?
We have to be able to triple the amount of funding that goes directly to early childhood education, right? First grade to
Okay.
sixth grade. We have to triple the education budget right now. 90% of it goes to salaries. It does not go to teacher training. It does not go to school feeding program. It does not go to facilities. So we have to triple just from first grade to fourth grade to fifth grade and sixth grade, that early childhood education. We have to be able to triple and then ensure that everybody who is teaching has a bachelor's degree, because we have to raise the level of education that the young people, we have to rebuild the foundation of the young people in Liberia. And then when you go to the older age, you go to 10th, 11th, 12th grade. If I was president of Liberia, when I'm president of Liberia, it would have to be an executive order that nobody can graduate from high school in Liberia without 2 years of technical and vocational training. We would no longer graduate people who are just high school graduates. They have to be carpenters, plumbers, electricians, caterers. We have to be able to apply and attach a skill to the young people so that when they graduate high school, they're not only looking to, to for people to help them to go to college. We have to be able to ensure that they have the ability to feed themselves, to fend for themselves. So it's two tiers. First grade to sixth grade, we ensure that teacher quality significantly improves with bachelor degree holders. The facilities and school feeding program, that has to be done. Also, all these schools around this country that we have our young children sitting down under the sun because there's no zinc. We have our young children in classes with no blackboard, with no benches. Those have to be closed. We have to stop lying to ourselves, saying that we're educating our children when our children are not getting educated. And Abraham, I'm sure you've seen all these videos that have come out in Liberia where you will see a high school graduate struggling to read and write, struggling to read and write. So that means in this country, we are more focused on the diploma and not the education. And we have to change that around. We have to be able to show that when somebody says they are a high school graduate, they have the education to match that. So again, double and triple our funding in early childhood education, ensuring also there's a school feeding program, and in 10th, 11th, 12th grade, ensuring that the students at that age group have 2 years of technical and vocational training. So when they graduate high school, they can create jobs for themselves, and they can also help to build our country. Those are two of the things that must be done in our country. And then, of course, there's other things we have to be able to do. We don't have a STEM high school where the best and brightest young people in Liberia will all be able to go work together. We have to be able to have a school where by merit, in the sense that the best graders, the smartest people in our science and technologies, the smartest students in math. We have to have a institution for them to be able to go so that we can also begin to raise the level of the type of people who are in STEM in Liberia. So these are the type of things we have to be able to do in this country if we want to raise the education. Technical vocational training has to be a priority, and early childhood education has to be a priority.
I was speaking with somebody the other day, and I told them if I was ever running for the presidency and I wanted to be president of Liberia, one of my the top thing on my agenda, my platform is a no negotiation will be building a 3,000 capacity for inmates like a jail for jail, so that when people commit all these kind of financial crime, corruption, even petty
Mhm.
crimes, or any violation from misdemeanor to felony, that it will go there. Because my thing is, it's a crackdown on corruption. What is your stand for corruption in Liberia? I believe that Liberia cannot be transformed if we don't have a rigid approach towards ending corruption. What is your stand for holding people accountable?
Abraham, and that word you use is extremely key, accountable. We do not hold anybody in Liberia accountable, and it has almost been a curse on our country. It's something as simple as this. Right now, when you drive in the streets, the amount of cars you'll see in the third lane, in the opposite lane, nobody's held accountable. Right now, if somebody rapes a young girl in this country, the family, they will go into palaver and say that family talk. Nobody is held accountable. Let's go to the corruption that you specifically talked about. Can you name me somebody who is in jail in Liberia right now for corruption? It's almost impossible. So as a result, we have a culture of unaccountability. That's why even when you look at the jails that you are talking about, absolutely. But the problem is we don't even have a dedicated court, and that's one of the things I would insist on doing as president. We have to have a corruption court. You have to be found guilty or acquitted. We can no longer continue to do the thing in Liberia where, oh, he is suspended pending further investigation and then nothing happens. That's
How will you
unaccountability.
how
We
will you
have to,
grade how will you
yeah, go
grade
ahead.
the how will you grade the current administration that came to power on the basis of trying to rescue the Liberian people? How will you grade them on their fight towards corruption and holding people accountable? This current administration, I mean the Joseph Walker led administration.
Well, the challenge with them is that what I just talked about, nobody is in jail for corruption. And you cannot tell me over the past 3 years there have not been corrupt acts, right? So, yes, The challenge and the issue is, right, when you look at corruption in this country, there has to be, going back to the idea about accountability. So when you talk about how would I grade them, I always say I'm giving them incomplete, right? But when we first started this issue, they talked about, one of the first things that we talked about was war and economics crimes code in this country. And I
Okay.
kept saying we do not need a war crimes code in Liberia. We know who brought the war. We know who killed though. We know who did, all of the acts of the war acts. It's not a secret. What we don't know is who continues to steal the money. So what I've been pushing on is getting an economics crimes court, and that's where this government has not taken it serious. They have to be able to take the next level. It can't just be with bringing war economics crimes court. Even last year, the person who was named as the head of the War Economics Crime Court, he was complaining that there was no funding for his office. So are we really taking it serious? We have to be able to take the budget, which I have a serious problem and I continue to have a serious problem, and put our money where our mouth is. If we say we are serious about fighting corruption, what are we actually doing? And not just going after one or two people, but in going after the entire system, and that's the only way we'll be able to transform when you talk about corruption. So that's why when you ask me what are they doing, there's nobody in jail right now for corruption. So damn it, they cannot be doing as good as they should. They need to do a lot better, and then they need to also focus this budget. And I always talk about the budget, but even the budget itself is corrupt in its very nature. The
How?
budget itself is corrupt in its very nature. When we just talked about healthcare, $9 million went to JFK Hospital, $12 million went to six political offices. How can you justify that?
Political offices.
The presidency, the vice presidency, the speaker, deputy speaker, pro temp, chief justice, they received more money than our JFK Hospital. So that in itself is the failure of leadership. So that's my point. When we want to truly develop this country, it has to start from the budget. $200,000 went to Maryland Technical Vocational College. $200,000. Yet us as a country, we spent over $500,000 just on scratch cards. How can we justify that? So these are the things when we start talking about corruption. It's not just to say corruption. We have to start from the very beginning and completely change this entire system that we have. The budget, the, right now, the government of Liberia is too big to succeed. 1.2, everybody was celebrating the last time. Oh, we got $1.2 billion, $1.2 billion. But the most important question is, what is it going for? The $1.2 billion budget is just going right back to government coffers for travel, for incidentals. How can we justify, even when we go to lawmakers, how can we justify paying lawmakers in Liberia just as much money as the United States pays their lawmakers? We're talking about $2,000 in fuel slip, $1,000, $500 in scratch cards. These are things that creates the system of corruption in our country.
If you're a president of Liberia, you can't. That's something you could pretty much circumvent or change in no
Absolutely,
time.
you can. Absolutely,
How?
you can. And
How?
so I
Do you,
always refuse. I always disagree with that because the executive is the one that creates the budget. The
okay.
budget doesn't emanate from the House. The budget emanates from the executive. It's the president, the finance minister. They all sit down and create a budget. There's no way in the world I can be president of Liberia and allow a budget that pays people $2,000 in gas slips every month.
But what?
Impossible.
But isn't that a law that it should have those things though? Isn't that a law on the book that they should have those things?
Then the law has to be changed if that's the law. I honestly don't know if it's the
Exact.
law, but
Exactly my.
that law would immediately have to be changed, or we
Exactly
would
my
not be
point.
signing the budget.
Because
We
at
would
the
not
end of
be
the
signing the budget.
because at the end of the day they make this law for themselves, and
Yeah,
and they're like, hey, this should go there for us, because we have the function.
but the idea of being president is to change the system, and we have to agree, Abraham, that the system in Liberia is failed.
What kind of leader
We
are
have a
you? Are
failed
you a
system.
are you a black and white leader or you a gray leader?
You know what? There can never be black and white, and there can also never be gray, right? There also
Okay.
always has to be some type of compromise. But the very start of any negotiation with me would be we cannot allow, right? We cannot continue a system where the police officers are getting $125 a month and lawmakers are getting $2,000 in fuel slips. No.
That brings me to law enforcement. I have a strong passion for law enforcement, just
Mhm.
based on my personal experiences. Like I always tell people, I grew up in the war. When the war came, uh, I was just about 3, 4 years when the war came. So I was young, and the war lasted for how many years? 14 years. So 18 years of my
14 years.
childhood. I never had a childhood like many Liberians. I never had a
Right.
child. Young Liberians. I never had a childhood. Um, and I'm very much keen on law enforcement because I feel like law enforcement are the guardrails that help to save society.
Hmm.
What is your approach for like broad national police, the immigration, the DEA, and most like fire service? What is your approach as to how you deal with law enforcement? How do you intend to change the whole trajectory of police, immigration, and so on and so forth?
Abraham, again, that's another good question, but the answer continues to be the same. The budget. The budget. We cannot continue to run a system in this country where 90% of the police budget goes to salaries, not training, not equipment, not intelligence, but salaries. The same thing in education, the same thing in agriculture. The problem we have is that we are running such a big government with so many people bloated on the government payroll that we are ineffective in doing what we have to do. So even when you go to the security in this country, right? Let's look at the military. We have a 2,000 person military, right? Who, you know, and I would assume they're trained. We have, I think we have some very good trained military people from the Ellen Johnson's relief years, where the United States government and other international partners were able to help
SSR.
train our people, right? But let's be realistic, right? Right now, since we're talking about the security, let's look at the border. Are there not still Guinean soldiers on the soil of Liberia? Yes.
You know,
So when you start to talk, go ahead, Abraham.
that was actually bringing me to the point of the whole thing. That was the next question I was going to ask you, but I was trying
Hmm.
to get into that. Um, I w- what is your stance on the Liberia and Guinea borders? What do you think? What do you think? Do you think the government in itself is disrespectful to the plight of Liberian people since the border thing came out? I know the president went there to Guinea. They had some conversation.
No
The
press
president is
conference.
yet to talk about it. What's going on?
Exactly.
What's not happening? As a matter of fact, it led to one of the House representatives had to speak, and it turned it as a responsible speech, whether he had an impingement or expect from House of Representative. As of now, they're not saying nothing. Now, uh,
The speaker
Representative,
and the deputy speaker also went to the border, came back, and had absolutely no response to the people of
correct. I was
Liberia
in Liberia. I was in Liberia that
at
time
that time.
by that
Okay.
time when I went there. However, um, 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 Honorable Bilita said apparently Guinea is the head of the Monterey Unit, I think, for now. And then they're pretty much had a conversation with Sierra Leone. And Sierra Leone probed into the matter, said, what are you guys doing in Liberia? Why you guys have your flag planted on Liberian soil and so on and so forth? And the Liberian people are pretty much agitated about this thing. And he said, apparently, Guinea showed, Sierra Leone, that, hey, this is the map. This is our land. They've been occupying our land for a long time. They have not been able to leave the land. As a matter of fact, this is our land. We're just trying to reclaim our land. President Bouaga went to allegedly went to he went to not allegedly went to Guinea. Allegedly, it was shown that this land is us, so the map, and apparently agreed that it was their land. And came back and said nothing. Diplomatically, as a diplomat, as a person who worked in Liberian government before, what do you think is the government's score on this whole approach of the border issue?
No, but you just described it. And one time I was on the radio a few weeks ago, and one of the lawmakers called to refute me. And what I said was this, right? For the president of Liberia going to Guinea, I promise you the cost of him and his delegation and the security features and everything that had to go into it, it was probably $100,000 for him to go to Guinea for that one day, right? To
If
go
not
have a
more,
meeting, if not
if not
more,
more.
right? Then we go back, and when we look at the Speaker of the House, the Deputy Speaker, and several other lawmakers also went to the border to ascertain what's going on. So that in itself was also $30,000, $40,000, if not more, when you factor in all of the fuel and everything that had to go into it, right? So basically, the government of Liberia has spent $150,000 in a country where people have nothing. Our education system is broken. Our hospital system broken. Agriculture system, we are importing 60 to 70% of the food we eat. And yet they came back and told the Liberian people nothing. All we know is that the Guinean flag is still allegedly on the soil of Liberia, and nothing has been said. So, what I would have expected the president of Liberia to do when he came back from Guinea was to address the Liberian people directly. Not to tell the Ministry of Information to put out a press release. No, this is too important for that. As president, I would literally be having a press conference once a week to talk directly to the Liberian people and be able to answer questions directly from the Liberian people. That's what leadership needs in Liberia right now. That's what we need in Liberia right now. So going back to your original question about the about security sector in Liberia, we are struggling in Liberia simply because the security sector, the police people, are not truly supported. They're not truly supported. How can you justify, right, the low salaries of police officers and then the high salaries of lawmakers? We don't have ethical leaders in Liberia. And that's the challenge, and that's been the issue we've had for decades in this country. We don't have ethical leaders because the ethical leader would never take the salary and the pay scale and say, teachers get $70 a month. We get $2,000 in fuel slip. Police officers get $100. We get $10,000, $12,000 because we are lawmakers. The idea is surface. And so, again, when we start talking about transforming Liberia, it all begins and ends with the budget, and the budget is not good enough to transform this country. So, I don't care how much money we raise 1.2 billion, 800 million, 500 million, it doesn't matter because the application of how we are using the money for the Liberian people is faulty. It's false. When you look at the executive, how much
Mhm.
money are they using? How much money is going to the Ministry of State? Millions. How much money is going to House of Representatives? Millions, tens of millions going to Ministry of State, tens of millions going to. So we would never be able to get a true security sector. So all these things we're talking about, oh, change this, we're just fooling ourselves because the very foundation of how we run a government in this country is faulty and flawed. And so that's why when we start talking about fundamental and transformational change, this is what we are talking about. How can we truly change the system and not continue the status quo? The status quo has failed Liberia. It failed Liberia for decades and it continues to fail Liberia. The fact that let's go to the agriculture sector, the fact that a typical Indian Liberian person has to wait for an Indian farmer to grow rice in India to put it on the ship to send it to Liberia before Liberian men can eat, let you know that we are failing as a nation. We have to be self sufficient at the very least in our own staple food of rice. But let's look at the budget again. I will continue to say the budget because that's where our fault lies. The
I,
agriculture sector got $13 million in the budget. Going back to the security, and I know I'm jumping all around, right? But going back to the security thing, they did a supplementary budget, right? During this same time that Yeke Koliba was expelled, they did a supplementary budget. They called the lawmakers back for 10 days. I don't know how many millions of dollars was given to them to come back. 7 of the 10 days, or maybe 8 of the 10 days, was spent simply on trying to expel Yeke Koliba. 1 day was spent on the supplementary budget where 50 plus million dollars was passed. 11 to 12 million of it went directly to government operations, travel, fuel operations. So again, we will not develop Liberia if we continue to run the budget. And I go back to the idea that is the executive that creates the budget, right? Creates
mhm.
the budget and implements the budget. So I'm not going to put any fault on the lawmakers.
So
The fault starts with the executive because of how they are submitting the budget to the legislature.
that's great to know. You're not a novice to Liberian government. You're one young person who was opportune to blessed to have served your country. And you held many other capacities and roles and so on and so forth. What would you say were your achievements during those time when you held those positions? What can you point to say this is what I did, this is what I achieved?
I'm so proud of the work that I've been able to do. Working for the people of Liberia, and I'm anxious and I'm hungry to do so much more. This has been a lifelong journey for me. Yes, I'm relatively young, even though we're getting older, but I'm relatively young in the parlance of
By the way, when I say
politics.
young, I'm always discussing Liberian politics in context.
Right, right, exactly. So that's why I'm also trying to, and I 100% agree with you, right?
Right.
I started working for the people of Liberia, right, at 25 years old, working as an intern at the Liberian Embassy in Washington, D.C. I moved my way up to work at the United Nations. And then I worked at the Trade and Investment Office. And then I worked in the communication sector at the Ministry of State before I then went into actual implementation of projects, being the youngest person to lead project development in Liberia, head of the Presence Delivery Unit. I was also the youngest ever Minister of State without portfolio in Liberia's history. I was also the youngest chairman of Liberia Electricity Corporation in Liberia's history. And so all of those things, let's start from the chairmanship of LEC. I'm so proud. I know my coffee hydro is just step one, but I was proud to have been the chairman of the board when we finalized and completed the construction of my coffee hydro. Everything talking about the negotiations going to Germany, ensuring that we had enough funding to complete this multi hundreds of millions of dollar project in Liberia for Mount Coffee Hydro. In addition to that, the CLSG line, which brings electricity from Cote d'Ivoire to Liberia onto Sierra Leone and Guinea. I was also chairman of LEC when we finalized and broke ground on that project. Again, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And I'm also proud to say throughout all of these negotiations, you will never hear, ever, and I'm so proud, and I have challenged everybody for the last X amount of years. You would never hear that Dr. Clarence K. Moniba took one single dollar or asked for any single dollar. You will never hear my name any corruptions. So
Have you ever
all
been bribed before or attempted to be bribed before?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I won't sit here and say there wasn't attempts to bribe me. But the thing about when I talk about ethical leadership, I know my value and I know my worth and I know my commitment to the people of Liberia. And so if we are sitting here talking about we have to change the system, then I cannot be somebody who's saying it by mouth but taking money underhand. So that's why I'm always proud to say you would never ever hear that I took anything or asked for anything. Yes, there were opportunities, but absolutely not. I didn't take it. And so I'm proud of that. And I challenge and I'm so proud of all the people who have worked with me. I'm so proud of all the people who know me personally and from afar. And you'll never hear that. So I'm proud of that. But just going back to the idea about the implementation. So my
Mhm.
coffee hydro, I was chairman of LEC, the CLSG line that is bringing electricity, hundreds of millions of dollars, almost $500 million worth of investment projects from Cote d'Ivoire to Liberia onto Sierra Leone and Guinea. I was chairman of LEC when we broke ground on that. Let's go to the roads. Even the Lofa road that's being built right now, I helped to lead some of the negotiations and finalize the funding. The red light to Banga, the red light to red, the ERWA to Banga Road. I oversaw implementation on that. The White Plains Water Facility Plant, I oversaw implementation. And I did all of this as head of the Presence Delivery Unit, where I did project manager for all of the major projects in this country. And so these are things I'm proud of. Even when you go to the Southeast, um, the Southeastern Highway Road, which was
Mhm.
broken ground in 2015, from all the way to Harper. I helped to oversee the implementation and development of that and the funding of that. So these are things I'm proud of the work I've done, but the work is not complete. Complete, and so that's why I continue to stay engaged. And I also continue to say I don't have to be in government to continue to advocate for these things. And so I'm proud of the work, but there's so much more to be done.
So, when you talk about the LEC, because Liberia Electricity Corporation has always been a disaster in the country, based
Absolutely.
on the lack of continuity. What KPR are you using to say, "Oh yes, we did this"? Because my point, the reason I'm asking that question is that if I'm making a reference to say, "Hey, this is what I helped to do," I'm making a reference to something that I helped to build and it's great and it's stable, and I'm making a reference towards that. What was the negotiation that you guys had in place to make LEC what it's supposed to be, that after you left, Liberian current is still a problem?
It continues to remain a serious problem, and it's for two reasons. One reason is that we don't have the capacity to fix transformers into this country. We don't have we were creating enough generation. So let's look at LEC from two perspective, right? The Mount Coffee Hydro, which was my major KPI, right,
Hmm.
key performance
Performance
deliverable. Uh,
indicator. Hmm.
yeah. So that was my primary deliverable, right? Mount Coffee. The thing with that generating power is that what the people of Liberia don't understand is that we as Liberians, we need almost $300 million just to electrify, just to connect all of the homes in Monrovia. To electrify all of the homes in Liberia, we need an estimated $4 billion. So Mount Coffee is the first step. So yes, Mount Coffee was never meant to solve the problems of Liberia. And that's the challenge that people don't truly understand. Mount Coffee is the first step of 1,000 steps that's needed. But here's also the challenge that we have such unstable electricity in Liberia. Mount Coffee is a run-of-the-mill hydro. And I don't want to get too technical, but it's a run-of-the-mill hydro. That's why when rainy season coming, people have electricity. Why? Because the turbines that we purchased can only truly operate when there's water flowing. Because to build a dam is about $1.7 billion minimum to build a dam from the St. Paul River, which Liberia has not been able to secure. Negotiations have started with the World Bank, but when I left the office, I don't know where, to be frank with you, I don't know where that is. But to be able to build a dam to have my coffee operating throughout the whole year, we need billions of dollars of investments. And Liberia, from the leadership perspective, have not been able to secure that. So as a result, we have a Mount Coffee that only runs properly during the rainy season because that's when enough rain falls and the river is running, and so we create energy. But that's only the first problem. The second problem goes back to the idea of transmission and distribution, which is even more expensive than creating electricity. We don't have enough funding to electrify all of the homes in Liberia. So all of these transformers that we have in all these different communities, they become
Mhm.
overloaded because of power theft and everything else. Because you can't be sitting here, LEC comes and connects my house, and then the next house right next to me, they don't connect it. There will be power theft. And these transformers are not built to be overloaded. Once they break apart or once they fail, guess what? We cannot even fix those transformers in this country. We have to send them to Ghana. So even when I was leaving as head of LEC, we had signed an agreement with MCC, the Millennium Challenge Corporation, which I was also the chairman of and helped to negotiate about $250 million that came into the country, which also included the road fund. That was also supposed to be part of establishing a factory in Liberia that would be able to repair these transformers and also be able to do connections. But when we left in 2018, to be frank with you, that entire thing broke down. I really don't know what happened. So these are some of the measures that were put in place, but were not actually fully implemented when we left the office, the administration, when we turned over to the CDC government. But again, nobody would truly be happy with LEC simply because LEC 100%. Right now, a lot of people have to use solar, right? And
So,
how
what
many?
is your? I'm sorry
Go
to,
ahead.
to
No, go
interrupt
ahead.
you.
Go ahead.
What is your strategic strategic recommendation
Mhm.
as of now? What do you think? You have had that department before. You've been there before. You know the ins and outs to an extent.
Mhm.
What is your recommendation now to government that, hey, as it is now, this is what we can do, or what would you do if you were there again to make energy stable? Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on our new channel as we are trying to make a lot of content that will promote our channel. Please, every like, every share, every click means a lot to us. Please like, share, and click the notification button so that we'll have new content, you will know about it. As we're going through this process, we are wanting to boost our channel. Please, your likes is very appreciated. Your comment is appreciated as well. Your share is appreciated, and please make sure you hit that notification button so that every time we are going live or we have a new content, you'll be the first to know. This program is brought to you by us with true intention. We are not here to grow any politicians. We're not a political party. We just concern Liberians who want to have people or give people the opportunity just to say their side of the story, say what they want to do, how they want to go about it. This is not to grow any politician. This is not to make any politician look bad or make them look good. We're asking honest questions. We intend to be straightforward, honest, and to the point. It's not about politics, it's about leadership. So please hit the like and subscribe button. Look us up on Facebook as well. Look us up on TikTok. Look us up on YouTube. Please like and share our channel. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you and God bless you.
At least LEC has to be privatized. LEC, it should not be an institution run by government. And that's some of the challenges that we have in this country, that government tries to run everything. We have to make the transition to have a privatized economy, which we do not have. LEC, the primary goal of us working at LEC, one of my main mandates the year and a half I was at LEC was simply how can we get LEC in a state where it could be privatized, have a company come to run it, because that's the only way we could be truly effective. That has to be it. But there's no private company that would come and take LEC with the amount of losses. At a certain point, LEC was the most expensive per kilowatt hour in the world. We were paying 50 cents an hour when I first went at LEC. We were able to bring it down to 30 cents per hour during the year and a half we was there. And even for the corporations and the major uh, institutions and places that were using electricity were able to bring it down to 22, 23 cents per hour. But that's still significantly higher than even some of our counterparts in Ghana, in Sierra Leone, and in Cote d'Ivoire. So the challenge is, how can we get a private company to come and run LEC? We have to be able to address power theft in Liberia is still high. At a certain point, every dollar made by LEC, we're losing a dollar. So no private company is going to come. So we have to get true management at LEC to be able to cut down on power theft, and then the sustainability. And then the government also has to be able to back whatever private company that comes into the country. Because yes, no private company is going to come to run LEC and do a loss. And that's the challenge. So this is where some of the funding that the government has, it has to be able to say, if a private company comes into Liberia, we will be able to back your losses so that we can regularize electricity. And then more importantly, this is where having leaders who can go to the World Bank, who can go to the IMF and advocate for Liberia. I said before, we need almost $4 billion to truly address the electricity problem in Liberia. We need leaders to go sit at the table and not ask for 10 million, not ask for 20 million. We need leaders to be able to go and say the people of Liberia need $4 billion to address the electricity sector, and that's where the discussion needs to start. This problem has to be solved with competent leadership and then the ambition to make sure that the electricity in Liberia is addressed. But it's not going to be addressed on the current path we have because there's not enough money, private sector money, and there's not enough money coming into Liberia. And so the leadership and the government now has to back up the country's electricity sector. The government has to be able to go to IMF. The government has to be able to go to the World Bank and negotiate terms that can transform LEC, because right now it's not going to happen anytime in the near future. The last thing I'll say about LEC, in 2017, I had a meeting as chairman and I had all of the ambassadors there and we were having a presentation. And at that time, the presentation said by 2030, 35% of Liberians will have access to stable and regular electricity. And I went around the room asking each of the ministers and the ambassadors who was there, is that good enough for Liberia? And the answer is absolutely not. So we have to fundamentally change how we approach and how we fund the electricity sector in Liberia. But it's not going to happen unless the government of Liberia takes the budget, going back to the budget, Abraham. I know we've talked about that so many times, to be able to back whatever private investment is done in the electricity sector to cover their losses so that they can bring investment to electrify the homes in this country.
So that's great. And another thing I want to talk about, I know you kept going to it when I was not prepared to talk about it.
Mhm.
Um, I I personally believe that the the Ministry of Agriculture should
Mhm.
be more so of a regulatory body,
It should be.
whereas the 150 million, 35, 50 million that's being infused there just to run the ministry and whatever it is could be infused in empowering local farmers to make their own food, you know, make their own farm, and then hopefully they can sell the produce to the consumers, after most of, some will be adding value, so on and so forth. What is your thought process in revamping agriculture? Are you going to do, like, for example, giving them money to run and whatever it is, getting machine and car here and there, or are they going to be a regulatory body and giving
You
money to
see,
farmers?
and again, and to the point you raised, right? We have government doing too much. The role of government is to regulate. That's it. It's not to implement. So going to your point about agriculture, what the government should be doing is looking for investors in every single county so we can have factories and farms. One of the policies that we have put together and we kept stressing in 2023 and we continue to stress is that every single district in Liberia should have at minimum, right? The rural villages now, the rural districts, not necessarily District 4 here in Peenville, District 4, District 3 in Monserrato. But when we start talking about the rural villages, which is about 60 rural villages in this country, each of them should have at minimum 3 to 5,000 acres of land for farming and post-value production, right? So, but the idea is that the agriculture ministry has to be a regulator bringing in private investors and investment. I always continue to say we should have Lofa Bong, Bapulu, Magibi. They should be able to produce enough rice to feed the people of Liberia. We go to Nimba, we go to Grand Chile, they should be able to produce enough cassava, enough cocoa to feed the people of Liberia. You go to the southeast, every single county, every single district should be responsible to feed the people of Liberia. So if we do that, we will no longer be importing 60 to 70% of the food that the people of Liberia eat. So the mission of the agriculture sector should be to attract investments. The job of the government should be to give enough incentives to attract investment into Liberia. Liberia has some of the best soil in West Africa, but yet we are not taking advantage of it. I said it earlier. We wait for somebody in India to grow rice before Liberian men can eat. That is a fundamental failure of our administration. That is a fundamental failure of how we think about government in this country. We should be self-sufficient at the very least in our staple food of rice. Going back to your idea, you talked about security. That's national security because right now, God forbid happened, and we saw what happened at the Strait of Hormuz, right? Where they were blocking ships. What happens if that happens and no food can come to Liberia? What happens to the people of Liberia? We starve because we simply are not in a position to grow our own staple food of rice. Even when you look at cattle, I'm from Lofa. When I go to Lofa, we want to eat cow, we have to go to Guinea to buy cow. Let me give you a common example of what Rwanda did, which is something we 100% would do if I was ever president in Liberia. Rwanda instituted a policy where every single village family received one cow. Every single village family received a cow. And simply because going back to ensuring that the young people of Rwanda were able to drink milk every single day. The poorest family, when you go to Rwanda, have four, five, six, seven different cows. The government goes around and impregnates each of these cows for $3. So again, when you go to the villages in Rwanda, somebody can be poor, but when they wake up, their two or three children have fresh milk to drink. When they go to bed, they have cow meat to eat. And they're also producing their own rice. So these are the policies that we have to put in place in Liberia if we are going to transform. So the agriculture sector, because even when you look at the agriculture sector was $13 million. All that $100+ million are what other international partners are doing for Liberia. But the people of Liberia, the budget of Liberia only allocated $13 million for that. In the supplementary budget, they added another $1 million. And I promise you, it's just going to operations. How can we truly say that we are serious about being self sufficient? We are serious about being a food producing country and even an exporter of food if we are only putting 13, $14 million to the budget, yet the Ministry of State would take $20 million. How can we say we are serious? You think our even our international partners will look at us serious? Absolutely not. So these are the things when we talk about fundamental change. That's why when we first started this conversation, Abraham, I said that our generation will have to be the one to change the mindset and the trajectory of this country. It's a must that our mindset, our generation starts to change. And that's why I'm always advocating for things like this.
One person who have serious problem and issue with the lack of empowerment thereof for SBE, which I want to term as small business empowerment,
Absolutely.
in Liberia. I'm an
Absolutely.
entrepreneur. I got a business in Liberia, and I'm in talks with institutions and Liberian government to make sure that my business becomes what I wanted to be. However, also see that there's not a room for small businesses to thrive in Liberia. So, for an example, if you left from
Exactly.
here today, you went to Liberia, you want to do any kind of business you want to do, most of the time, if it's contract, whatever it is, the government wants you to have done this thing four, five, six, seven, eight, nine times, or you should have the financial backing. And because you don't have it, you are denied by default because most of the guys that have this money that can fund out some of these projects and so on and so forth are the foreigners, the Lebanese, the Indians, the Ghanaians, right? So
Exactly.
the
Exactly.
outsourcing government contracts outside to foreigners. And one example I could said was one of those things about this. I think this national ID stuff that they had going on, and it was so bizarre to me, that a government will be giving their that data to a foreign agent or foreigner, to do this. And it's a national data for your country. But Liberian business, small business have been pretty much secluded from this idea, from this whole thing about, empowerment. There's not a prosperous or is it presumptive or projected future for Liberian businesses. What is your plan? How do you think we can empower Liberian businesses?
Like Liberian businesses are struggling, and it's by design. The typical Liberian cannot go to any bank in Liberia and get funding to open a business. That's why the biggest business, and again, nothing's wrong with that, right? I don't want to diminish what these people are doing, but the biggest business in Liberia is Abuela Market, simply because the average woman in Liberia cannot go to LBDI Bank, cannot go to Central Bank, cannot go to GT Bank and get a loan. So that's why when you talk about the richest people in Liberia are foreigners, Lebanese, Indians, and simply because they have access to capital. So when they come into the country and invest real money, they take the real money out of Liberia, and the Liberian people we continue to stay and remain low. So again, I always say the typical Liberian child. The reason why we have 20, 30 people running for president, the reason why we have 40, 50 people running for representative, because the typical Liberian child, when they are walking on the side of the road and they see a nice house, they say, "Who house is that?" They say that the senator house. The welfare mini, they say, "Who house is that?" They say that the minister house. And then in that same breath, right, they will see the businesswoman selling plantain chips suffering under the sun, suffering. They say, that business there, I don't want to do business. If I have to get rich in Liberia, I have to become a government official. And the only way to truly get rich as a government official is to steal. And so we have this entire system in Liberia where the rich Liberians are government officials and the rich citizens, well, there's no rich citizens. The only citizens that really have money are either government officials or foreigners. A country can never develop. Going back to the budget, if we were truly serious about redeveloping and forming the private sector in Liberia, we would be having $200 million every single year that must be loaned directly to Liberian businesses. That the typical
But one
Liberian,
one will argue that when you give Liberian this money, these monies they don't pay back. They,
you
they run away.
No, but the argument would be wrong because simply listen, Liberian people, I've been blessed, Abraham. I've been to over 50 countries in my life. Liberian people work just as hard as anybody, right? So the idea is we haven't been giving the Liberian people opportunity. Will one or two people run away? Absolutely. But will 70, 80% of the people pay the money back? Yes. Because why are they running away to? They're in their country? If we put in a mechanism, right, where we say, okay, Liberian people who've had a business and you have land can go to the bank and borrow $30,000. Even if they take 20,000 to put in the business and 10,000 to put in their home, guess
Right.
what's happening to their home? $10,000, the painter is working, the plumber is working, the electrician is working, the tile layer is working. So the economy is growing. Right now, we have an economy where all the government officials and representatives have power access to the economy. We have to change it to be able to take that money and put it directly in the hands of Liberians. That's how we transform this country. So if a typical Liberian who has the Kobo shop wants to open a restaurant can go to central bank and credit $20,000, even if they use their deed, you think they will run away? No, their job is to make their life better. So they will work hard. So we have to be able to give the Liberian people the opportunity, right? We can't assume that every Liberian is bad. I always say it, every Liberian working in this Joseph Boycott government is not corrupt. Every Liberian who worked in we as government was not corrupt. Every Liberian who worked in Ellen government was not corrupt. We can go all the way down to Dole and Talbot and Tubman time. There are good Liberians in this country who want to still see good for this country. So we have to be able to give them a chance and opportunity. We can't say because 10% will run away, so 90% will suffer. We have to be able to take this budget. And that's why, again, I continue to say it because I hate the budget of Liberia. I truly hate it. I
I
hate
got,
the budget.
I got, I got.
We have to be able to take that budget and give it directly to the hands of the common people in this country. That's the only way to develop. That's how America has developed through businesses. That's how the Western world has developed through capitalism. Right now, we don't have a capitalistic state. If you open a business in Liberia and government doesn't support you, your business will fail. If you open a car rental in Liberia and the government doesn't come and rent your cars, your business will fail. And it should not be like that.
So I got a couple of questions for you before we take a leave of you. And I really want to say thanks for being here. But there are a couple of questions I want to ask you. I the education system of Liberia is very it's a challenge. They're experiencing challenge every day. You are a young man wanting to lead Liberia. You are put your foot up to say, I want to be the president of Liberia because this is what I think is the problem with Liberia, and when I become president of Liberia, this is how I'm going to change it. Yet and still, you took a teaching service in Rwanda, where you are impacting the Rwandans, giving them knowledge, preparing them for tomorrow. Don't you think Liberia could benefit from that same gesture as well?
No, but Liberians are benefiting, right? I just got off the phone before. I will be doing a seminar at Notre Dame University of Liberia. We are
Okay.
also setting something up at at UMU University. I've held several events at Cuttington, at AMEU, and so what my goal is to train 1,000 Liberians every year. But I'm also carrying the flag and being an ambassador of Liberia. The school and the university I'm teaching at in Rwanda, my co-teachers are PLO Lumumba, who, as we know, is an international figure, and Antoine Rutiyisia, who was one of the main people who helped to broker peace in Rwanda. These are my colleagues that I'm teaching ethical leadership. I've taught ethical leadership in Spain, in France, in Portugal, in the US. So what I'm doing is representing the people of Liberia to let people understand, right? That Liberians, we ourselves can engage in the academic and intellectual field. That's what I'm doing. I'm representing Liberia on that level, but yet still making sure that our goal, like I said, every year we have the Moniba Foundation, every single year. And if you go even on my page, on my Moniba Foundation page, or even on my Facebook page, you will see the amount of young people we are training in this country. We give out leadership certificates for free, and we'll continue to train. Like I said, this month alone, we're going to be doing uh, Notre Dame University of Liberia. We're going to be doing UMU, and we're working on also Cuttington and a few other universities in July. So I continue to train Liberians while I'm making my international engagements around the world, and so I'm proud to be, have the opportunity to do that. I'm proud to represent Liberia. It feels so good walking in a prestigious university in Paris to be able to say, I'm Dr. Clarence Moniba and I'm from Liberia, right? Let people start to understand that Liberia is not just about Ebola. Let people start to understand that Liberia is not about civil war. Let them understand that there are good Liberians, educated Liberians, who is now in the discourse of trying to bring ethical leadership, not just in Liberia, but on the continent of Africa. And that's what I'm so proud to be a part of.
And I think I respect that. And I think I agree with you. I couldn't agree with you anymore. But your critics would say that why can't Liberia benefit from the direct in the teaching that you are giving, and let the other nations benefit from the training? Why is it all the way around if Liberians are the ones you want to lead? What do you have to say to critics that say that? I know you're halfway through this video, and if some of you may have not liked or shared our video yet, please, we are asking you, please like, share our videos, make comments, hit the notification button so that you get to know every time we go on live and we have new content, you'll be the first to know. Like, we are on Facebook, we're on TikTok. Click, like, share, and comment. Also tell us what we're doing right, what we're not doing right, and also that at least this will inform our decision in what kind of content to bring up and exactly how to go about it. Please like and share our page, Facebook, and TikTok. Thank you, and we appreciate your support.
Again, there's always going to be criticism in everything people do, right? But like I
Mhm.
said, I'm proud to say that my target is to train 1,000 Liberians every single year. We are halfway there already this year, and I will continue to do. Like I said, I've lectured at the University of Liberia, I've lectured at Cottington, I've lectured at AMEU, and I will continue to do it. I will continue to do
You
so
you
while also, you know, building an international presence that represents Liberia in a positive way.
Well, you ran for president 2023, and during the dime many of the time you selected a vice presidential candidate who happens to be Madam Grace Ma, the controversial eat a figure. Uh, um, if you were coming with a moral standpoint there, you say, "Hey, Liberia and corrupt leaders had to be accountable," and so on and so forth. Why did you have to choose a woman who was scandalized, with her involvement with alleged corrupt allegation and approved to being corrupt? Why did you align yourself with that person as a vice president?
To be honest with you, Abraham, I feel so bad for her, right? In this sense,
Okay,
if you meet Grace Pond, outstanding, God fearing, strong Liberian person.
I went to a church. I used to be a member of a church.
Okay, so yes, right? God fearing, strong person. Now, when you look at the "you eat, I eat" scandal, what people only remember is that statement, "you eat, I eat," which somebody was telling her. And the reason they were telling her is because she was going against saying that she didn't want to be involved in corruption. That was the other, because we did, yes, 100%. I'm so proud of my stance against corruption. And so to bring on somebody like that, there were several investigations done. We listened to all the tapes. My team and I listened to all the tapes before we selected her. And it was very clear in the tape. She was very clear with the people. I don't want to be part of your stealing. I'm scared. I'm not going to be part of it. And that's when the guy said, "You eat, I eat." So the reason why those tapes even came out is because she did the recording and she leaked it out. And at that time, she took it to the mansion, the executive mansion. That's how all of this came out. So, the unfortunate, and that's why I say I feel sorry for her because people have tagged and
But somebody will say
people have,
somebody will
yeah,
say
go
she
ahead.
did it. Somebody said she did a recording because she had a motive.
She did it. Yeah, she had a motive to expose the person,
But
and
what
that's
if?
exactly why she did that.
Oh, okay, so but does that necessarily mean that, okay? Well, anyway, she's not corrupt, but somebody trying to set up. It's one thing.
If
Mhm.
somebody wants to bribe me, Abraham, right, and they're bribing me and they keep putting serious pressure on me, and I tell them I'm not part of it, they come back again. They put pressure on me, they come back again. I will record them and go report them, which is what she did.
Okay.
So, that's why I say I feel so sorry for her because her character has been thrown all over the place to say, "Oh, she was part of You Eat, I Eat." She recorded You Eat, I Eat, and she reported him and she exposed him. So
What is the
she
relation?
did her job.
What is the relationship with you and President Boakai?
To be honest with you, I haven't spoken to President Boycott since he's become president. We were, I won't say colleagues. Of course, he was the vice president, but I spoke to him very regularly. I did a lot of report for him during when I was head of the president's delivery unit, when I was minister of state. I interacted with him a lot. We do have a family relationship as well. I know his children very well. Even during the war, in Sierra Leone, we lived. His children, his family came and stayed with us for a brief period of time. But there's different seasons in everybody's lives, and so right now, of course, I'm not that close to President Boycott, but I always and I will continue to say I pray to God that President Boycott is successful because his success is my success. So even though I'm not talking to him on a daily basis, I haven't spoken to him since he's been president. So that's been over 3 years. I think the last time I spoke to him was maybe a month or so before the runoff. But listen, I wish him success. Right?
Is
Everybody
it,
doesn't have to be best friends with the president to wish them success. Everybody doesn't have to work in government to wish the administration and government success. My only issue has been how the budget is being handled. I'm not a fan of it. I hate the budget of Liberia because it does not cater to the people of Liberia. It caters to the government of Liberia. But
if you're
you know,
if you're to be called today to serve in the Boakai-led administration, would you take it?
I don't see. I honestly, I'm very comfortable doing what I'm doing right now. Like I said, I'm building a platform of leadership. In Liberia, around the world. I'm proud of the work I'm doing now. And like I continue to say, I love to be an advocate because if I was in the government right now, I wouldn't be able to talk about the budget. I wouldn't be able to talk about the negative uh, the negativity of what their budget is doing, right? I wouldn't be able to criticize government. I wouldn't be able to praise government because I always say opposition's job is not only to criticize, it's to also commend when they're doing good. So, with that being questioned, I have no intention to work in the government in this administration. Government job isn't an honor job in this country. And so we have to be able to also involve in the private sector, which is what I'm doing. I have a lot of real estate. I've been doing a lot of real estate since 2007, 2008, when I first started coming back to Liberia. And I continue to do that while also building my brand as an ethical leader on the continent of Africa and, of course, in Liberia.
So with your passion, your hope of changing Liberia, making sure Liberia becomes what it's supposed to be through
Mhm.
transparency and so on and so forth. I'm just a worker. I'm in the Oval Office of the President's Office, the executive mansion. I call. I say, hey, Dr. Moniba, I would like you to share the assets recovery team because I want to make sure that those are still people many want to be. Would you come?
No, I would. Everybody has to know their area, right? And to be honest with you, I have no intention in working in this administration. I
Mm.
would love to be an advisor, an unpaid advisor, where I can help to advise the government in terms of, because we have been able to build relationships around the world. I'm proud of the relationships we've been able to have built around the world. So I would love to be an advisor. I would love to advise them in terms of what I think they're doing wrong. I would love to advise them on a budget, but I don't need to become minister. I don't need to become director. There's a lot of people, but I will say this, and I say this, with humility. I truly believe, and the issue is, President Boycott understands this too. I truly believe there are no more than two or three better qualified Liberians in this country, right? But the reason why, from the initial standpoint, I wasn't working in government is simply because of politics. So if that's the case, that's fine. I don't have to work, but I can continue to support, I can continue to criticize, I can be an advisor, but I don't have to work in this government. But we all understand, right, that there are no more than two or three Liberians who are better qualified, not even just from the educational standpoint of having PhD, going to Harvard, and all that stuff, not from the educational standpoint, but just from the actual application of the positions I've served and the length of time I've served with the character and the delivery I've served. But at the end of the day, like I said, President Boycott needs to work with people he trusts or who supported him in the runoff, and that's what he's doing. So we support that, but please, my message is always the budget, the status quo that has continued from the we administration through this administration is not good enough to transform this country, and that's what I continue to advocate for.
Okay, that's great. I think it's good. We heard that. Obviously, like I said, there are many questions that I would have loved to ask you. But we don't have the luxury and in time to actually go over most of these questions. But if I should ask the few more questions before I leave, just very shortly, before you leave, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
What do you see Liberia like? What was the future of Liberia like in the next 10 years? What do you think that could be that is great about about Liberia that in the next 10 years? How based on this administration how it's going, where do you see Liberia in the next 10 years?
The same that we have now, which is not good enough. The same that we have now, which is not good enough. Again,
S-
a lot of people hear that and say, "Oh, listen, we have to be realistic about where we are as a nation. We have to be realistic. It's not about politics. The challenge we have in this country is that people put politics over nation. People put tribes over nation. We are more tribalistic than nationalistic, and we love our politics more than we love our country. Let's be very honest and very fair. At this rate, right? Liberia, and I can always be very transparent about it. Is this administration doing better than the previous administration? Absolutely.
what is
Is
better?
this
What is better for you?
in terms of in terms of the implementation, right? So let's even look at some of the implementation. The Lofa Road that I helped with the negotiations and the funding of it. We broke ground when I was minister, and we broke ground when I was head of presence delivery unit in December of 2017. It was supposed to be completed in 2020. We are now in 2026. It's still ongoing. This overhead bridge that everybody talking about in Liberia, that I went to China to help negotiate the finalization with the current Minister of Public Works, Giddings. That was negotiated and finalized in 2016. We are in 2026 and it's just getting started. So the issue and the problem with the previous administration is that they did not follow. The idea about government is that continuity. They didn't continue most of the major works that was already put in place. And so that was one of the main things. So the credit I give this administration is that at the very least, they are going back to finish some of these projects. But the idea of transformational change in Liberia, right? Where our children can go to school and have school feeding programs, where Liberia will be self-sufficient in our staple food of rice, where we have hospitals that can truly address the health needs of Liberian people is not being addressed simply because it has been status quo. Like I said, we cannot continue to run a government where where the budget is allegedly $1.2 billion dollars and 900 of it goes to the operations of the government. We are using almost 75% of the budget to run a government and barely 25% of it to develop the country. It has to be reversed. If I'm president of Liberia, it would have to be reversed, where 30% of it goes to running the government and 70% of it goes directly to developing the country. Like I talked about, there has to be loans for the people of Liberia. Even to build all the roads in Liberia, we need almost $3 billion. So, in 10 years, where do I see this country? Pretty much where we are now, which again is not good enough. There has to be fundamental change. There has to be transformational change. How we look at the budget, what we think government is. Right now in Liberia, when people get government job, it's like a party. Oh my God, thank God, our problems are solved. It should not be the case. It should be you are going to serve, not going to gain. And those are some of the problems that we have in this country. People look at government as a place to eat, as a place to gain wealth, and it should not be the case. Government officials should not be the highest paid people in any country, and that's what we have in Liberia. Even when you go to the United States, let's look at what the lawmakers make. The lawmakers in the U.S. make on average $14,000 to $15,000 a month. The lawmakers in Liberia, the senators, make the same $14,000 to $15,000 a month. How is that possible? So again, going back to your question of where will Liberia be at this current pace, Liberia will not be much further than where we are, which is behind Sierra Leone, behind Guinea, behind Ghana, behind Nigeria, behind Cote d'Ivoire, and we have the potential in this country to be one of the best countries, not only in West Africa but in Africa. And that's why I continue to advocate for a change of mind. People will see me, oh, he there talking. No, at some point, Liberia must become a great country. And we, in our generation, have to be the one to take on that mantle and to think that way, to raise the standards of Liberia. And that's why I continue to advocate for what are the standards that we want. Do we want some of the best schools in Liberia? Absolutely. Do we want some of the best agriculture farms in West Africa, here in Liberia? That should be our goal, not waiting for people to do for us, not waiting for international partners to do for us. We should be talking about Ivorians coming to Liberia to the hospitals, but it will only change when we look at the budget and make sure that the money goes to the people and not running government. And not running government, not on gas slips, not on scratch cards, not on travel, not on miscellaneous, not having one ministry with 50 drivers and 4 cars. This is the issues that we have in this country.
The very last thing I will say to you, it's not a question, but somebody listened to you in Zozo, Belafasama, Bekedu, or Foya. What is your parting message to every Liberian, the Oma in Zozo, the Peking in Grand Bassa County, the one in Saclay Pier? What do you have to tell young Liberians like yourself or even younger? Say, hey, what do you have to tell them as a national leader as to
Honestly,
what steps to take to move forward?
the same thing I tell every lecture I do, every speech I give in Liberia. Liberia doesn't need one leader. Liberia needs 5.5 million leaders. So all these people that you talked about who would listen to me, they need to take the leadership of their self, of their community, of their homes. They need to start to change their mindset, right? Of integrity, of humility. Because the problems of Liberia is not just from the governmental sector, right? Let's go to schools where teachers are taking grades, right? Let's go to the churches where pastors are taking money from the offerings. So at every level of our society, we have to change our mindset. And so that's one of the things I think most I can help to bring to the people of Liberia, to raise the standards of every level in our society. So these people who are listening in Belafasama, in Zwedru, wherever throughout the country, right? You have to now become the leader that you want. You have to become the change that we want to see in Liberia. You have to be that engine, that light, that fire that will begin to change this country. And if we all have this mindset, if we all have this approach, then we'll start to have the country we have. We have to start to hold our leaders accountable. During this, wherever election coming, somebody can't come and give you $10 and say, yes, thou our leader. Ask the person, what is their character? What is their background? What is their policies? Don't talk about personality, talk about policies. And then this is how we'll start to change the country of Liberia, when we start to hold people accountable. And that's why I'm so happy for people to, have scrutiny on my life. Look through my life. Look through all my offices. I always talk about we need an economic crime squad in this country. Let them start with every office that I ran in Liberia. Present Delivery Unit, LEC. Let them start with that. Do an audit of that, right? So we have to start to look for leaders who can pass that character test. And once we do that, then we start to develop this country. So that the people listening become the leader, become the change you want to see in our country, and we'll have the country that we want.
Well, thank you, Dr. Clarence Moniba. It was very nice to have had you here today. And I hope, I know this is just the start of many conversations that we're going to be having as we go about this. Thanks for coming on our platform. We appreciate it. And of course, ladies, gentlemen, Liberians, you heard him. His name is Dr. Clarence Moniba. He's the political leader for LINU. And of course, he's still asking for your vote, your support, and also saying, hey, every young person, come and be a part of us. I'm Abraham Toure. I've been your host. Thank you for being here, and we appreciate your time. Like and subscribe to our Facebook page, our YouTube page, and of course, and keep yourself informed. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very